Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Steve Hatherley today with Yushan and Fei Fei. Coming up, we're all conditioned to crank up the air conditioning when the mercury hits 35 degrees because that is hot. But what if that's the old way of thinking? In eastern China, one city is flipping that script. Residents in Xuzhou aren't blasting compressors, they're cooling their homes with cold water pumped from an abandoned coal mine deep underground. No heat sent out to the streets, no strain on the power grid, just a clever low-carbon rethink of how we stay comfortable. We'll learn about that. Our podcast listeners can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, we really love hearing from you. You can send us an email. You can also send us a voice note. However you get in touch, we always appreciate it. Here's how you do it. Roundtablepodcast at QQ.com. Once again, Roundtablepodcast at QQ.com. When summer heat pushes temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius, most of us reach for the air conditioner. But in Xuzhou, in East China's Jiangsu province, some residents are staying cool without turning on the AC at all. So what's the secret? Cold water from an abandoned coal mine deep underground, transformed into a low-carbon cooling system that can keep homes comfortable even in the hottest months. So, could old industrial sites become a new source of clean energy, and is centralized cooling maybe the future of staying comfortable in a warming world? Fei Fei and Yushan, we talked about air conditioning on the show within the last 2 months on Roundtable in the context of Europe. Mm-hmm. And the heat wave that Europe was going through and the controversy of air conditioning. Some people support it, some people want it, some people don't. Some people say it doesn't work. Homes not designed to experience that level of heat in the country. But here we're talking about air conditioning in a different sense because we're talking about an alternative to it, something that I've never heard before, and it's very, very creative.
Or a smart utilization of a system that wasn't meant for creating cool for indoor environments. Like this happens in Xuzhou in East China's Jiangsu province. So when the outside temperature soars past 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, inside a Xuzhou home, you can find the indoor temperature staying around just below 26 degrees Celsius. That's without even turning the AC on. And they managed to do it instead of traditional AC installed units. They managed to do it with low temperature water flowing through floor heating pipes to provide ground radiant cooling. Now, we're going to break it down a little bit more, but in short term, that's to utilize the already existing heating pipe system that covered the city of Xuzhou, but instead heating up the whole pipe system like we do in winter with hot water. They're utilizing cold water from another natural kind of a resource indoor.
And also, when we talk about coal mines, these are abandoned sites, so they're not being used for their original purpose anymore.
Yeah, in Xuzhou, yeah.
Yeah, a repurposing of them, if you will. So how does the whole process work then?
Well, I think first of all is they have like local engineers surveying in the city of Xuzhou because Xuzhou used to be famous for its coal mines, but because of a lot of the, for example, green transitioning going on in China, some of the coal mines were closed down. But that, it's not something you can reutilize that easily. So they've been staying there install these coal mines for many years. And now they, for example, looked at one of the coal mines called Shan coal mine in the city, and they found they have this chilled water underneath the ground. And so the engineers are starting to think maybe we can start repurposing these chilled waters. And they figured out different ways, trying to extract those waters from the underground and then helped homes. It's not directly pumping this water into homes for cooling, but in a very clever way and in a very smart way. We can also break it down later in the show, but somehow they can help cool down waters, and then these cooled waters will be sent to homes for cooling.
Well, that water that comes from those mine tunnels is water that stays at a constant temperature. And that temperature is 19 degrees Celsius, right? You mentioned that, I think, but it's all year round.
Yeah.
It never changes. It doesn't matter how hot it is outside. That water is always going to stay the same temperature. So the local engineers, like you said, Fei Fei, they have figured out how to get that cool mine water into people's homes, into the pipes to help keep the houses cool. So I want to talk about the process because it's kind of genius. It sounds very simple, I think, but it's also kind of genius to come up with an idea like this.
Yeah. Because first of all, you need to know there are cool mine waters staying naturally cool. Steve said, around 19 degrees Celsius all year round, deep underground. And then they need to pump that mine water into a heat exchange station.
So that's a separate building that, like you said, it doesn't go directly to people's homes.
Yes, and then that mine water cools a separate loop of clean water. And then this clean chilled water is sent through the existing heat pipes into homes and then circulating through this pipe network and absorbing the heat from the rooms. And then when the water absorbs the heat, it of course becomes warmer, and then this warmer water flows back into that heat exchange station, and then they transfer the heat back into the coal mine water and then through a heat exchanger, and then the coal mine water is then re-injected into another mine shaft, which will naturally cool again underground.
See what I mean? It sounds so simple, but it's so genius too. And then, so it's just a cycle, right? And it keeps going and going. And once that heated water gets recooled, then it's sent back into the homes and it creates this loop. It's a closed loop. And the pilot system, it's not that old, right? It launched on the 1st of June. It's going to run until the end of September because they want to see how this works. But during the period, it's beneficial for the residents too because they're getting a special discounted rate of just 4 yuan per square meter. So it's really, really affordable for them.
That's kind of similar to offering heat during wintertime because we charge residents for the square meters of their home based on that. It's like a charge we kind of pay every year. So now with the pilot program being on a special discount rate for that, it's to try out if it actually works for indoor environment, and if it does, they are indeed thinking about how to expand it.
And by the way, that 26 degrees, you said it cools the homes down to 26 degrees.
Yes.
That's the temperature that a lot of people put their air conditioning at.
Yeah, exactly. And also thinking about Xuzhou, I checked the weather recently in the city of Xuzhou. It's above 25 degrees Celsius every day almost for the few past weeks. So I think most of the people will naturally turn on the AC. But now with this kind of pilot system in place, at least for the residential communities within this pilot system, they don't need to turn on the AC. But that being said, it doesn't mean I think this system doesn't come with new equipment and new technology behind it. For instance, I read one of the engineers that are developing this cooling project said the homes need still to install dehumidifiers because of the water sent into homes, and also considering the local climate of Xuzhou can be very hot and humid at the same time. So pumping more water into homes can create more humidity within the rooms.
Like a sweating.
Yeah, and also when
floor sweating.
When you are having a cooler pipe within a hotter environment, there are water gathering around that pipes that sort of increase the humidity in the environment. So that's why the engineers, it is one of their technological breakthroughs. They sort of develop new dedicated dehumidifiers for homes to use.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so you don't have to deal with that issue, which is unavoidable by the sounds of things.
Yes.
Yushan, this is much better for the environment than using an air conditioner.
Yeah, definitely, because this system is incredibly efficient. It reduces energy consumption by about 50% comparing with traditional AC or air conditioning, because AC, it consumes so much energy because it actively removes heat from inside the building and pump it outside, which is a process that requires a large amount of mechanical work because you need a heavy-duty compressor to create cold air from scratch. So that's why AC is consuming so much energy. So in comparison, by utilizing the natural chill of the mine water, which actually comes right like sitting down underneath the city of Xuzhou this whole time, it requires far less energy to keep homes comfortable while borrowing an already existing heating system.
Yeah, it's a much more sustainable way, too, isn't it, to beat that summer heat. Also, I think a good point to bring up is that I'm not sure of the size of Xuzhou. It's a pretty big city?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of the heat island effect? I think that's what it's called, where you have almost like a dome over the city, because the larger cities will have this phenomenon where they get warmer than rural areas because buildings and machines, they trap the heat and they release the heat, and it makes it hotter inside. But this technology that this city is using underground mine water is so much better than that, because you said it, Yushan, the air conditioners one of the job of an air conditioner is to take the heat from inside and blow it outside.
Yeah.
We've all stood next to, by mistake, right?
Yeah.
An air conditioner.
The fans outside.
That outdoor unit and that hot air. Now imagine how many air conditioners are in a large city and how many air conditioners are blowing hot air out into the city. So when you use this kind of system that they're using in Xuzhou, think of all that hot air that's not being blown into the city. This is just great for the city temperature overall.
Yeah, it's a more healthier and positive cycling of things, because when we talked about that European debate about installing air conditioning system in the cities, the heat island effect is one of their concerns. They're seeing that you are just taking the heat outside of the room and pumping it into the city, which make the cities even hotter. You are not solving the problem. And I think this pilot system, even though it's still in the policies, but it's definitely a more innovative mindset in thinking about how to cool yourself down in heat waves. But that being said, they still face a lot of challenges. I think, for example, when we are thinking about reutilizing abandoned coal mine water, they are not really that safe. For example, I think the engineer said they need to fight against corrosion. Because because the water, the mine water can be, for example, in Xuzhou, it can be a slight acid.
But I thought the mine water isn't being pumped into people's homes, right? The mine water is being used to cool other water that's in a different set of pipes.
But they still need to pipe those mine waters into that station.
Oh, right.
So they need to design a specific tubes for the pipes.
Yeah, because that mine water still has to travel. Sorry, I was thinking about the pipes going to people's homes, but this is the piping that's getting the water from the mine to the treatment station.
Yes.
And tech language aside, let's not forget that many of these pipes in the northern part of China that we're talking about, that's being used for this new side of role of chilling off the houses, they were developed in I think around 1950s and expanded during the 1970s.
Old pipes.
So these are decades of old pipes we're talking about. Of course, many of the radiators that we know that's being installed indoor are much newer, but the pipelines that's buried underground for these apartment buildings are still kind of old.
Yeah, and also, but I think the good side is that is why they're thinking about not directly pumping the mine water into homes, because they still want to use this heating system. Because for for a northern city, in summers, this massive pipeline network is not in use. They're just sort of sit there.
But in the wintertime, it is in use.
Yes, but now they're sort of reutilizing it in the summer, and that is why they need this kind of exchange station to cool some clean water first of all, and then use that clean water for cooling.
I didn't even really know that around the world, different countries are looking for alternatives to individual air conditioners. I didn't realize that this is an initiative. We've heard for a long time how bad air conditioners are for the environment, but there's some different stuff going on around the world, which is pretty cool. One of the things that's being done, I think it's in Sweden, it's in a Scandinavian country, where they use, it's kind of a similar concept, but here they use seawater to do the same thing. They bring in seawater and then they cool the water that will go and cool the buildings. And it's also the same thing in the sense that seawater obviously can be very corrosive because of the salt in it.
The minerals.
But they use a specialized piping system apparently for that section of the cooling process. And then it's a different set of pipes that brings the water into the building. So it's a very similar concept there.
Yeah, and also I think in China's Wuhan city, they're also trying something very similar to this one as well. They're utilizing the water from the Yangtze River. They're utilizing river water to also very similarly cool down they're cooling down a business district. But that being said, to be proved to be very effective. So for buildings inside that business district in Wuhan, they don't need to turn on a massive AC units.
Is this something that can be, because we're talking about, particularly when we're talking about Xuzhou, we're talking about abandoned coal mines.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a coal mine expert, but I assume China is not littered with abandoned coal mines all over the country. So is this something that can be scaled to a point where it's in use everywhere, or does it have to be coal mines specifically for this particular type? If you're not next to the ocean, I suppose.
Xuzhou is a particular case because it once was a major coal production base in eastern China, and the only coal base in Jiangsu province too. So it makes it so unique of a case to develop this system locally. But for other cities to try to copy this model, yes, but only if they meet three important conditions as listed here by some of the experts. First of all, you need a big enough underground hot water tank as the facility. And also the water must be pipe friendly, as we talked about, the corrosion issues. And also it has to make financial sense. If it's too massive and it costs too much for the benefit, then it's not really sustainable.
Not worth doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, talking about worth doing compared to air conditioners, the system is expected to save about 50 tons of carbon emissions every year. And that might not sound like much, but it's roughly the same as taking about a dozen cars off the road for a year. Now, again, that might not sound like much, but that's just one pilot community of around 100 households. If you are able to scale that up to a nationwide project, that would be a huge difference. All right, we'll leave it there for today's Roundtable. Thank you very much for being a part of our show today. I'm Steve Hatherley for Fei Fei and Yushan. We ask you to come back again next time. Bye-bye.